Hello and welcome to the third section of chapter 4. We're going to talk about dividing polynomials today. All right, so we want to find the quotient of two polynomials using long division. We're only going to do linear factors. They're going to be factors that are greater than, have an exponent value greater than 1 that you're going to divide by in pre-calculus. But for today and for algebra 2, we're just going to do linear factors. And I'll explain what a linear factor is. And then we're going to find the quotient of two polynomials using synthetic division. So we'll talk about synthetic division using a linear factor only. All right, so what is a linear factor? A linear factor is a factor which has the form of a line, meaning a polynomial to the first degree. Right, so I have x minus 2, degree is 1. 2x plus 4, degree is 1 for x. Minus 3x minus 7. Highest degree is 1 for these three factors. They're all in the form of a line. If I were to set them y is equal to that, you would end up with a line. So we're going to call these linear factors. Here I have a quadratic factor. The highest degree exponent is 2. This is a quadratic factor. I can have a cubic factor, quartic factor, quintic factor. So we talked about polynomials. Now we're only going to consider factors that are linear, where the greatest degree of that variable is going to be 1. All right. We can also have, let's say, a constant factor, which is just a simple numeric factor. All right, so let's talk about some things we need to discuss around division, some terms: dividend, divisor, and quotient. So dividend is the value which is being divided. So 8 divided by 4 equals 2. Divisor is the value divided into the dividend. So I divide the divisor into the dividend to get the quotient. The quotient is the result of the process of division. So dividend divided by the divisor provides us with the result, which is the quotient. So dividend, divisor, quotient. All right, so we're going to set up long division. You've seen this before in your regular math classes, I don't know, in 4th or 5th grade, where you have long division of some multi-digit value, which is the divisor. Dividend is some multi-digit value. And then you end up with some quotient and then some remainder over the divisor. So divisor into the dividend to get the quotient on top. And then the remainder is going to be over the divisor. Okay. So please write this all down. These are your notes. All right, so let's go through the process of polynomial long division with a linear divisor, which is x minus 1. All right, so we're going to take this first term in the dividend, right? And we're going to take the divisor first term, and we're going to divide as a linear factor the divisor first term into the dividend first term. And we're going to get this result, which is x squared. That becomes our quotient, and we're going to place that here. If you have an empty term in the dividend, you need to place it in here. So empty term means there's no value for x, but we want to keep a placeholder, so we're going to put 0x. Right, so we had x cubed plus 3x squared minus 4. We have an empty term. There's no value for x in, if we were to think of this in standard form, 3, 2, 1, and then the constant. We have to place this empty term in here to account for some values that we're going to get. All right, so this is the setup. All right, so now we have x squared here. We're going to multiply x squared times each value in the divisor. So it becomes x squared times x is x cubed. X squared times minus 1 is minus x squared. Okay, and so now we're going to take x cubed minus x cubed. So we have to place this minus sign here. So we're going to subtract the result of multiplying the quotient by the divisor, and then we're going to subtract that value from the dividend. So x squared times x is x cubed. X squared times minus 1 is x squared, negative x squared. So x cubed minus x cubed is 0x cubed. 3x squared minus a minus x squared is 4x squared. 0x minus 0, 0x, minus 4 minus 0 is minus 4. Okay. Next step, now we have something left over. We're going to start with 4x squared plus 0x minus 4. And we're going to go through the same process. We're going to divide x into 4x squared, and we get 4x. That becomes our next element or term in our quotient. And then we're going to multiply this by x and negative 1. So we get 4x squared minus 4x. We're going to subtract these values. We end up with 0x squared minus a minus 4x, which is plus 4x. Minus 4 minus 0 is minus 4. All right, and then we're going to do this step again until we end up with 4 times, we're going to divide 4x by x. That gives us 4. That becomes part of our quotient. 4 times x and 4 times minus 1 is minus 4. We're going to subtract these values, and we end up with remainder of 0 over x minus 1. So x minus 1 is a linear factor of x cubed plus 3x squared plus 0x minus 4, because the result is x squared plus 4x plus 4, and with a remainder of 0. So quotient, divisor, dividend. So this is our process. Okay, so let's do this again. I'm going to see, let's have you pause this video, see if you can take care of this process of dividing long division with a linear factor of x minus 2. And I'm going to show you the result, and I'm going to give you some classwork to do. Okay, so I'm going to go through this with you. I'm going to divide x into x cubed. I get x squared. This becomes part of our quotient. Multiply x squared by negative 2, negative 2x squared. Here, I'm going to subtract the result of this first term in the quotient by the linear factor, which is x cubed minus 2x squared. I end up with x squared minus 4x plus 4. And then again, I'm going to divide x into x squared to get x. This becomes the second term in my quotient. Multiply that against both terms in my linear factor to get x squared minus 2x. Subtract x squared minus 2x from what remained from the first set of subtraction. I get minus 2x plus 4. I'm going to divide x into minus 2x. I get minus 2. Multiply minus 2 against minus 2. Also, I end up with minus 2x plus 4 minus a minus 2x plus 4 with a remainder of 0. All right, so you can pause this and also work this out on your own until this makes sense to you. And then reach out for help if you need some from me or any of your other resources. All right, so I have 2 classwork problems for 4.3.1. I'm going to give you the first one. Please copy this down. And then I'm going to move on to the second one. Please copy this down as well. It's number 2. So I have 2 problems. And I'm going to move on to our next topic. We're going to find the quotient of 2 polynomials using synthetic division, again with a linear factor. So let's talk about synthetic division. I'm going to divide x cubed plus 3x squared minus 4. So same polynomial divided by the same linear factor, but we're going to do this through synthetic division. So the first thing we need to do is determine the value of x in the divisor that makes the divisor equal to 0. So in this case, when x is equal to 1, it makes that linear factor as a divisor equal to 0. So x is equal to 1. We're going to use 1 as part of the synthetic division process, but 1 is now my divisor in synthetic division. Okay, so the first thing is, with a linear factor in synthetic division, find the value of x that makes that entire linear factor equal to 1. That now becomes the divisor in synthetic division. So let's see how that works. All right, so I'm going to set up this kind of backwards L. My linear divisor of 1 that I just generated from the previous slide becomes this value here, outside and to the left and in the upper left of my reverse L. Then I'm going to place the coefficients in order using, again, the placeholder here for 0. In standard form, 3, 2, 1, constant value, coefficient 1, coefficient 3, coefficient 0, coefficient negative 4. not forgetting the empty terms. And then I'm going to construct my synthetic division system here. And now I'm going to go through the process of synthetic division. So this is the setup. All right, so now I'm going to take this 1 here, and I'm going to, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down the first term. And then I'm going to multiply the result here, 1 times my divisor of 1. That product now goes into the next column. Okay? So the next step then is to add top plus bottom. That gives me 4. And then I'm going to multiply that by my linear divisor. 1 times 4 is 4. I'm going to leave that here. And then I'm going to add these two values, these two rows, in the next column. That value becomes 4. I'm going to multiply it by 1. Place that again in the bottom here. I'm going to add these two values together. And this is the end of the synthetic division process. Now, if this value is 0, then I know that x minus 1 is a factor of this polynomial. The beauty of this process also is that it gives us the quotient in the coefficients of the quotients in these values, right? First it's x squared, then it's x to the power of 1, then it's the constant. And then the last value is the remainder. Okay? So you can go increasing, if this is 0, constant, x to the first, x squared, and so on for whatever values you have remaining. This value represents your quotient on the bottom. All right, so we had that linear factor. We drop the coefficients down, placeholder for 0. First we drop this 1 down, then we multiply 1 by 1 to get 1. Add them together. 4 times 1 to get 4. Add them together. 4 times the sum. 4 times 1 is 4. Add them together. This value is the remainder. It would go over the linear factor as a factor, x minus 1. All right, so please review this again if you need to circle back around to the beginning and reevaluate this process on your own. Okay, so this is how it works out. All right, so let's find the quotient of the polynomial dividend and divisor using synthetic division. I'm going to do this for you, but I need for you to try this on your own before you take a look at the answer. So please try this on your own. I'm going to give you the answer with the workup, and then you're going to have some classwork to do. All right, so we see that for the linear divisor in synthetic division, it's 2. The value of x that makes this linear factor equal to 0 is 2. This is the value 2 I'm going to put here. Coefficient 1, coefficient negative 1, coefficient negative 4, and then 4 is my constant. I have no missing terms, 3, 2, 1, 0. I drop the 1 down. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus negative 1 is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. Negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. 4 plus negative 4 is 0. X minus 2 is a linear factor which produces, when you divide into this polynomial, a quotient of x squared plus x minus 2 as I see these coefficients for these values. Constant, x, x squared. All right, so this brings us to a set of classwork for you. There are 2 problems. I'm going to present these to you. Here's the first one. Please copy this down. You're going to do synthetic division now, not long division. Okay, please copy this down. I'm going to move on to the next problem, second problem. Please copy this down, second problem. All right, that brings us to the end of our discussion. Thanks for joining us. We'll have more discussions on polynomials when you come back for our next section, which I believe is 4.4. Thanks very much.